is the right place. I wasn't sure. First I heard Southeast Hebrew congregation, so I went to Southeast Washington. I'm like, I don't think it's here. Then somebody told me it was here, but I see a big sign that says Northwest Branch Pool. I'm like, those guys aren't dressed for dinner. I was on the beltway for like 6 hours. I felt like this magnet, it just goes, and sometimes I'm like, I feel like you passed this place already. And GPS wasn't helping either. My GPS does this really annoying thing, where every time I pass an exit on the highway, it reminds me to stay left. And don't get me wrong, GPSs are very helpful. But basically, it's like a person with no social skills that you let sit in the passenger seat anyway because he knows how to get places. Like he keeps interrupting you while you're talking or listening to the radio to tell you things that he already told you that have no bearing on anything for a while, such as that you should stay on the highway that he already told you that you have to stay on for the next 3 hours. And you missed the beginning of what he said because you were talking. You didn't realize he was about to start. And you say, what? And he doesn't answer. So I personally think that the next leap forward in GPS technology should be that it responds to voice commands, such as what? And should I stay left again? To be honest, my GPS doesn't always know where we are. For example, whenever we drive through Manhattan, it spends half the time convinced that we're actually inside buildings. It's like a little senile being that won't stop giving me advice. Make it right over here. We're home, buddy. We're on the couch. I also cannot for the life of me figure out how to stick it to the window. I stick it on, it stays on for a while, and then I make a left turn and falls under the seat, out of my reach. And then it keeps directing me, muffled from under the seat. It's like I'm taking direction from someone I kidnapped. So basically, the GPS is like a senile, socially impaired kidnapping. But at least we're making progress. Just a few short years ago, GPSs hated humanity. And they took every opportunity to cheerfully direct us into walls, and steer us off bridges, and send us the wrong way down a set of train tracks. It's like they were programmed using cartoons. So at least nowadays, they're just passive aggressive about it. So progress. I think that's why when it comes to GPS, there has never been another invention that more people who don't own them are proud not to own. Not one person who doesn't have a GPS says, actually, you can't afford one right now. They never say that. They probably ask, we don't have a GPS. What, you have one? Like, I could drive and read a map at the same time, thank you very much. I mean, sure, over-reliance on technology is never good, but no one says, an oven? We were thinking about getting an oven. But then I figured, what's the big deal? You squat in the backyard, you roast your chicken, for that you need an oven? My wife's not so happy. You know when I do GPS? When I go to IKEA. I always get lost when I go to IKEA. I don't even go to the one in College Park. I go to the one in New Jersey. There are IKEAs all over the place. IKEA is the biggest furniture retailer in the world, and it's extremely popular with people who don't mind putting their furniture together themselves. Like let's say your shul needs a new couch, for example. Let's say it does. I'm not saying it does, but just let's say, right? So they provide everything that you need in a kit, including these things that look like screws but aren't screws, that are held in place by these little roundy things. And their entire manual is a series of pictograms, so that the customers of any nationality can all fail to understand it equally. So if you're putting it together as a family, you kind of have to make up names to all the pieces. Like, can you pass me 4 of those round thingies so I can put them in the zahak and hold the schmicheks? And there's no way you can get on the phone and order more if your kid swallows them. But in the end, you're left with a sleek piece of furniture, as well as some pieces you have no idea what to do with. And you can put a ton of stuff in it. IKEA has this magical technology that makes storage units that are bigger on the inside than on the outside. And that's great when it comes to furniture. They build their stores that way too. And that's why I always get lost. You figure sometimes you get lost on the way to a store. You never get lost in a store. Most stores have aisles, and at one end of the aisle, you can actually see the cash registers. But the IKEA store is built to look like customers are walking through people's actual furnished homes, which I think is very disconcerting. It looks like you and a bunch of random strangers are rifling through their belongings, opening up drawers, commenting on the quality. And there are no aisles. The entire store is an intricate one-way maze with arrows on the floor. And the arrows keep going around in circles, never toward the exit. And at certain points in the maze, you can actually find the map, which will show you shortcuts, as well as where to find extra wives, and health packs, and such, because they want to go right smashing furniture with a crowbar. But the shortcuts just confuse you. Some of them take you back to the beginning of the maze, so by the time you realize it, there's a whole stream of people coming through the shortcut one way and stopping and going the way. And you can't get through, so you have to go around the whole store again. And the shortcuts don't even make sense. How do we cut through one wall and end up here? I thought we were upstairs. I'm afraid of going through one of them and ending up in an entirely different IKEA, possibly in Sweden. The displays are supposed to show, what life would be like if you bought the pieces. But the truth is that what life is like when you buy the pieces is that you're sent down to a dreary dungeon, float through thousands of nondescript brown boxes that all look exactly alike, until you find, let's say, your sofa, broken down to its smallest possible components and crammed into a pizza box. And that pizza box is heavier than your car. Every time I go to IKEA, I find myself dragging behind my wife, who always walks like she knows exactly where she's going. And I'm saying, this is the 5th time we passed the Bajorgan forests. I know that because I counted on them the first 3 times, and then you said that was the 3rd time you made that joke, and that was 2 times ago. Because that's the other thing about IKEA, the product names. They use a lot of weird letters like that O with 2 dots on top. This one. Apparently the 2 dots are called an umlaut, which I always thought was a kind of German deli meat. I like a kind of umlaut, please. But on top of an O, it looks like a guy screaming really loud. Is that a pronunciation cue? Am I supposed to do that and know the word? My most recent IKEA purchase was a big dresser called a melon, which is actually the sound I made when I dropped the box on my toe. So now I'm thinking that a lot of the products are probably named after the sounds you make when you drop them. That explains things a little screaming guy in the middle of some of the words. My point is, I had a point. My point is that it takes longer to get from New York to Silver Spring than from Silver Spring to New York. Because, Silver Spring is further. It's out of town, right? It's not Baltimore, it's not DC. Of course, out of town is all a matter of perspective. To the people in Brooklyn, I live out of town. In as much as when I leave the house, I don't have to take into consideration whether I'm going to lose my parking spot. But I'm not really out of town. In fact, I can see the city from any hill in my neighborhood. Whereas people who actually live out of town are asking, which city? Now, originally, I think, out of town meant that it was a town of people, and your house was literally in the middle of nowhere. And there was a pretty good chance on any given day that you would get eaten by wolves. Then, once everyone became settled, out of town started to mean out of the town that I personally live in. And it's generally said by people from bigger towns, such as New York, about people from smaller towns, such as anywhere that is not New York. But most people define it as an area where there aren't enough places to get pizza. I recently took a trip out of town when I went to Cincinnati to host a Chinese auction. Most of my job was to announce the winners and make funny comments about the prizes that would hopefully not offend the donors. Most of them were in attendance. And then get out of Cincinnati before they could come after me. And yeah, Cincinnati's out of town. Okay, fine, so the people in Cincinnati think they're in town. Nah, I'm just kidding, they know they're out of town. There's only like 200 from families there. Yeah, there are 200 from families in Cincinnati. There are over 80 in my shul in Passaic. And it's one of the smaller shuls in town. And they all know each other's names in Cincinnati. I don't even know the names of everyone in my shul. But half the people, I'm still not sure if they live here or if they're just guests who come to Passaic a lot. But on top of making jokes and, trying not to offend anybody, I was asked to do some stand-up comedy. So I asked, what should I speak about? And my contact said, I don't know, how about some of the differences between Cincinnati and New York? Because New Jersey's like New York's annoying little brother. So I said, I've never actually been to Cincinnati. I'm not going to write all my material after I get off the plane, right? So she said, okay, here are some differences. First of all, we're very polite over here, very out of town. See, they know. And that's true. People out of town do tend to be more polite. Now, before all the in-towners start yelling at me, I should explain why this is true. If you live in town and you go out of town for, let's say, vacation, and you see another firm person, even one you don't know, aren't you more likely to go over and say hi? It's like how statistics say that when you're in a boat, you're 80% more likely to wave at other people who are also in boats. Hey, it's another person. I'm in a boat too. Yeah, we're all in the same boat. Keep an eye on me because my friends are going to push me in later. But in town, everyone's thinking the same thing. I don't want to go out. Everyone's going to be there. see another front person in the shop, right, your first thought is, I bet he's going to get the last 2 grape juices. So I would definitely suggest going out of town for a vacation. It's quiet out there, except that people keep coming over and talking to you, even though you're very clearly a guest. But yeah, I went for a Chinese auction. I would have to say that Chinese auctions are hands down the best type of auction. It's something more exciting than just buying things from the store. Going to the store is kind of boring actually. You give the store money, and you basically always get something for that money. Wow, yeah, let's go to the store. There's no excitement, no suspense, so Chinese auctions are definitely the way to go. In fact, I think we should sell Elias via Chinese auctions, rather than the way we do it now, which is a system where everyone sits there while the guy yells out numbers, and people indicate that they like him to yell out higher numbers by doing things such as hugging their ears and beating their noses. And meanwhile, you're sitting there afraid to scratch your ear because the guy's going to think you're bidding. And if he does, you have to go into this manic frenzy of waving your arms and hoping he doesn't think that you're bidding against yourself. Also, at a Chinese auction, there are a lot of exciting prizes to win. Everyone comes in for this 3-hour event, where the display is showing all these great prizes, and they put the tickets in, and that takes about 5 minutes. And then they have to sit around for another 2 hours and 55 minutes, waiting for the drawings. So sometimes there's food, so they can sit around chewing. So it's kind of like a lottery. You get to eat and watch your friends go home with prizes. Normally, lottery tickets only come with like a Slurpee. But mostly, what people do at Chinese auctions is they argue with their spouses about the prizes. My wife and I go through the same thing every time. I look through the auction book before the event, and I circle furniture package, which, as I picture it, is a big package containing furniture. I'm not really sure what to picture, because we never win. And then my wife says, we already have furniture. And I say, yeah, but this is new furniture. Our furniture looks like the kids have been using it as a handkerchief. Or we argue over the Israel prize. My wife circles Israel. And I go, Israel, where are we going to leave the kids? And she goes, maybe with your parents. And I say, I don't know if they're up to it. Should I call my parents and ask them whether hypothetically, if we won, they'd be able to watch the kids? Or she says, a kiddush cup? We already have a kiddush cup. What do we need another one for, don't you? I have this fantasy where I have 4 kiddush cups for Pesach, all for the Seder. You know how on the cover of every single Haggadah, the guy has 4 cups lined up ready to go like a race car driver? That's the dream. The auction in Cincinnati also featured, besides for the things that every Chinese auction is legally required to feature, like an iPod, a menorah, 2 shekels, isn't hers? So this auction actually featured a set of very fancy linens, donated by a local hospitality company. Yes, there's a whole industry of people being hospitable and charging for it. But if you've ever been in a hotel and thought about stealing the linens, then this is the prize for you. I don't know, maybe you want your guests to feel like they're in a hotel but with bigger bottles of shampoo. The prize consisted of 2 top sheets, 2 fitted sheets, 4 pillowcases, 4 bath towels, 4 hand towels, and 8 washcloths. I don't want to ask my 2 guests who need 2 top sheets, 2 fitted sheets, and 4 pillows, also need 8 washcloths. What do they wash? And why in total do they need 16 towels? Are they planning on clogging your toilets? But it's a good way to raise money for the school. Well, we actually start summer vacation this week, which is very good news for me because I'm a teacher. And it's very bad news for me because my kids are students. they're coming home. But hey, at least we're getting the same amount of preachers coming home as we originally sent to school at the beginning of the year. One Shabbos in the middle there, we had an extra one. That was just Shabbos that my 7-year-old Daniel brought home a gerbil. I'm telling you, these kids pick up the weirdest things in school. Yeah, it turns out that if you're in 2nd grade, sometimes a teacher keeps a pet of some sort in the classroom to teach the kids about life, and also death, well, mostly death. but also for teaching them about life, the main lesson being that someone has to bring life home every Shabbos. I don't know why it just has to be the younger grades.